$15,000 sitting in your bank account doesn't sound life-changing until you realize it's the exact threshold where your entire financial operating system gets an upgrade. Most people think an emergency fund is just money sitting there doing nothing, waiting for something bad to happen. They're missing what actually shifts when you cross this specific number. Here's what nobody tells you about the $15,000 mark. For most Americans, this represents 6 months of essential expenses. Not 6 months of your current lifestyle where you're ordering delivery 3 times a week and subscribing to 5 streaming services. 6 months of actual survival costs. Rent, utilities, food, insurance, minimum debt payments. The stuff that keeps the lights on and a roof over your head. According to Bankrate's latest survey, only 47% of Americans can even cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. So if you've hit $15,000, you're already in a different financial universe than half the country. But the number itself isn't what matters. What matters is the psychological shift that happens once you have it. When Maria hit her $15,000 goal after 3 years of grinding, something changed immediately. She was a marketing manager making $75,000 annually, stuck in a toxic workplace with a boss who knew she couldn't afford to leave. Her monthly essentials ran about $2,500, so $15,000 gave her exactly 6 months of coverage. The moment she crossed that threshold, a recruiter called about a startup position offering 10% less base salary but significant equity. Before the emergency fund, she would have ignored that call. With 6 months of runway, she actually considered it. 3 months later, she took the job. 4 months after that, the startup hit cash flow problems and delayed paychecks for 3 weeks. Her colleagues panicked. Some quit immediately. Maria pulled $2,500 from her emergency fund, paid her bills, and calmly evaluated whether the company would recover. It did. Her paycheck resumed. She replenished the fund over the next 12 weeks. A year later, her equity vested, and she walked away with $50,000. None of that happens without the $15,000 foundation. That's the first major shift. You stop making decisions from a position of fear and start making them from a position of strategy. Your boss can't hold your paycheck over your head during negotiations because you have options. A recruiter calls with an opportunity that requires short-term sacrifice for long-term gain, and you can actually evaluate it rationally instead of immediately dismissing it because you need this month's rent money. The second shift is even more powerful, but most people don't realize it's happening. Once you hit $15,000 and your emergency fund is fully funded, the money you were contributing to that fund every month suddenly becomes available for something else. If you were putting away $500 monthly to build that emergency fund, that same $500 can now redirect to investments, debt payoff, or wealth-building activities that actually grow your net worth instead of just protecting it. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Meet James and Jennifer, twins who both earn $60,000 annually. Both committed to building $15,000 emergency funds. James hit his goal at 28 because he aggressively cut expenses and picked up side work. Jennifer reached hers at 30. Both started investing $500 monthly the moment their emergency funds were complete. Same contribution amount. Same 9% average returns. Both invested until 65. James retired with approximately $1,088,000. Jennifer had about $875,000. The difference? $213,000. James got a 2-year head start because he hit the $15,000 threshold earlier, and compound interest D-eyed the rest. Those 2 years in the market during your late 20s end up compounding for decades. This is why the emergency fund isn't just about having money for emergencies. It's about creating the timeline clearance to start building actual wealth as early as possible. Every single month you delay crossing that $15,000 line is a month you're not invested in the market, not paying down high-interest debt aggressively, not taking career risks that could multiply your income. What makes this particularly crucial in 2026 is the interest rate environment. Right now, high-yield savings accounts are offering somewhere between 4.5 and 5% APY. That's not just higher than the pathetic 0.01% your regular checking account pays. It's genuinely meaningful growth while maintaining complete liquidity and safety. But here's what changes once you're fully funded. That 5% you're earning on your emergency fund stays exactly where it is. You don't touch it. You don't redirect it. That $15,000 continues growing passively, while your new monthly contributions flow into index funds averaging 10% annually. Over 10 years, that monthly $500 at 10% becomes roughly $102,000. The same contribution in a savings account earning 5%? $77,000. $25,000 difference from identical monthly amounts. This is where people make a catastrophic mistake. They think crossing $15,000 means they should start taking bigger risks with that money itself. Wrong. The emergency fund stays boring, stays liquid, stays safe. What changes is what you do with new money coming in. Consider David, a 35-year-old software engineer pulling $95,000 annually. He spent 4 years building an $18,000 emergency fund covering 6 months of his $3,000 monthly expenses. Throughout his corporate career, he'd built a software tool his colleagues loved. Multiple people suggested he could sell it commercially. Launching would require 3 to 4 months off work to build the minimum viable product, develop marketing materials, establish business infrastructure. Without his emergency fund, impossible. He had a mortgage, car payment, family to support. With $18,000 saved, David negotiated a 4-month unpaid sabbatical with his employer. They agreed he could return to his position if the venture failed. He lived off his emergency fund during this period, burning through $12,000 while generating his first $2,000 in revenue during month 4. The product gained traction. By month 6, back at his day job, he was earning $4,000 monthly in passive income while working full-time. Month 12, $8,000 monthly from the business. He quit his corporate job. Within 2 years, the business generated $200,000 annually in profit. David attributes his success entirely to having that $18,000 foundation. It gave him runway to take off entrepreneurially. Without it, he'd still be an employee wishing he could pursue his business idea. Now let's address the debt situation, because this confuses everyone. Before hitting $15,000, you should be splitting contributions between emergency fund building and high-interest debt payoff. Building the fund entirely first delays debt elimination and costs you interest. Paying off all debt first means every emergency creates new debt, often at higher rates. The simultaneous approach wins. But once you cross $15,000, the equation transforms completely. You now have 6 months of coverage. You can attack high-interest debt with absolute aggression because a single emergency won't derail your progress and force you back into the debt cycle. That credit card charging 19%, obliterate it. That personal loan at 14%, gone. The emergency fund protects your debt payoff strategy from interruption. Here's what nobody explains about the $15,000 threshold. You're not just reaching a number. You're completing what financial planners call milestone 2. Milestone 0 is 1 month of basic expenses. Milestone 1 is eliminating all high-interest consumer debt. Milestone 2 is 6 months of expenses in liquid savings. This is the cushion experts recommend for genuine financial resilience. Crossing milestone 2 fundamentally alters your relationship with risk. Before, you're avoiding financial risk while unknowingly taking massive risks elsewhere. You risk your entire financial future on a single income source. You risk decades of your life working for companies that could eliminate your position tomorrow. You risk retirement security assuming Social Security will somehow fund your golden years. After $15,000, you spread risk intelligently across multiple income sources, multiple asset classes, multiple strategies. One investment performs poorly, others compensate. One business struggles, other revenue streams provide backup. You're not gambling everything on a single outcome. The insurance angle matters too. Your emergency fund should cover your highest insurance deductible at minimum. If your largest deductible is $5,000, your emergency fund needs to exceed that threshold. Otherwise, you're not actually protected against the scenarios insurance is designed to address. $15,000 typically exceeds most people's highest deductibles, meaning you're genuinely covered. What separates people who build wealth from those who perpetually struggle isn't intelligence or luck. It's completing this foundation phase and entering the building phase. $15,000 represents that transition point. Below it, you're playing defense, constantly worried about the next financial hit. Above it, you're playing offense, strategically positioning yourself for opportunities that multiply wealth. The moment you cross $15,000, everything you've learned about money up to that point becomes exponentially more valuable. Because now you can actually execute on it without fear derailing every decision. The $15,000 emergency fund isn't the finish line. It's the starting block. Most people spend their entire lives trying to reach this point and never make it. If you're there, you've already separated yourself from the majority. If you're not there yet, every dollar you add to that fund is buying you options, freedom, and time. The difference between someone with $14,000 saved and someone with $15,000 isn't $1,000. It's the difference between still building the foundation and being ready to construct everything on top of it. Your next financial decision should be completely different depending on which side of that line you're standing on. That's what actually shifts at $15,000.